I want to bring in David McIntosh. He's with the Club for Growth. All right, so the markets are obviously concerned about the trade war. We saw more signs of it last week on Friday. The Michigan sentiment number, 24% of the respondents mentioned it. We saw it with manufacturing data from the Chicago PMI. We even saw it with some corporate earnings. Constellation Brands, which makes a lot of Mexican beers, mentioned it in their filing as well. How concerned are you, and where do you think it goes from here?
Well, Charles, as we see the spread of more and more tariffs and retaliation from Canada and China, I think the concern's only going to get greater and will continue to limit the growth potential that we have right now from the tax structure and the deregulation. It could really affect the markets. It can affect the whole economy.
Now, we're talking near term, but long term, if President Trump is successful in opening up markets, not to so-called free trade, but to free and fair trade, if we can get these other nations to lower their tariffs, if we can get them to allow our companies to do business without having to bribe every local official, if we can get rid of some of the burdens of value-added taxes, would it be worth it?
I think the 0-0 goal the president's announced is a great one, and that it's worth negotiating and being really tough on. Unfortunately, his worst proclivities are being brought out by the guy Nutty Navarro, who really wants high tariffs. He wants a 19th century economy of protectionism, and that will hurt Americans.
So when you say Nutty Navarro, I mean, listen, I've had Navarro on my show many times. I've spoken with him. This is a guy who's written at least a half a dozen books about China and their threat to our economy. He's saying if you look at the data, for instance, they entered the World Trade Organization in 1995. We've lost so many jobs since then, and it's been so unfair. They've ripped us off from IP. What's nutty about wanting to protect that?
Look, what we want to do is protect open markets, and for every job that's been lost, new ones have been created as we have
folks in the Midwest,
here.
I mean, come on, you know this better than anyone else. You might have run on this. You know folks in the Midwest would disagree with you on that.
No, but you look at it, I represented the Midwest, and right down the street is a plant from Asia, a plant from Europe, that is here creating jobs in America. That's what free trade brings. You see it in the steel tariffs. What the people who are getting hurt aren't the foreign countries. The people who are getting hurt are Americans who use that steel to then create other products, everything from baseball bats to car parts.
Yeah, and of course there are people who are saying the reason why our steel industry was gutted in the first place is because we never pushed back. Let me ask you about the World Trade Organization and the idea that it's somehow an effective agency to take care of these things. You know, a lot of people are up in arms. Oh, President Trump wants to get out of the WTO. I've done a lot of research on this. Let me ask you. There was a measure. America had a complaint against China against protection and enforcement of intellectual property rights. This was in April 2007. We took the same exact action in March of 2018. Same thing with Canada. We went to the World Trade Organization on October 8, 1997 to complain about dairy tariffs in Canada. They're still 270%. How can anyone say that the World Trade Organization works? I know we win 90% of the awards, but what do we win? What do we really win?
We win a lot of reduced tariffs around the country. We've got 30-some countries that we're pushing to reduce their tariffs. The president wants WTO, in fact, to get to his 0-0 goal of tariffs. They're the ones that would enforce that. Now, Charles, the other thing is, we don't like to give them the final say, neither do these other countries. So in the end, all that WTO is like an arbitration that isn't binding. It helps reduce the tariffs. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. And we just have to keep pushing on the ones we lose.
Yeah, I think it's not the answer then if it's not binding because, listen, China self-identifies as an emerging growth nation. They say that they have the same economic constraints as Togo, a country that does $4 billion a year in GDP, and they do $12 trillion. I mean, give me a break, David. It's tough. Listen, I understand. I appreciate you coming on. We got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I love you. We'll have you back on real soon.